Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for this week's episode. My guest this week is kind of my neighbor, but not really. I wish. Her name is Julia Baldwin Taylor, and she runs the Etsy shop Aligned Adventure, and it's a brand much bigger than just an Etsy shop. So I'm really excited to talk with Julia about all what she's doing. Julia, thank you so much for being my guest, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Ajama. I just am such a fan. I've been listening to your podcast, I think since I started my Etsy shop back in 2014. It feels like you're an old friend. So
Wow.
It feels like this full circle moment to connect with you finally.
Oh, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And I really enjoy chatting with people who have listened for a while, because those conversations kind of feel comfortable to me, because I feel like, okay, I think she knows me. So
I feel like I know you, yes.
So that 2014 was kind of early awkward days for the podcast for me.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been around for a while. I think you've seen me grow. Hopefully I've grown.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us, Julia, how would you describe yourself? Are you a crafter, a maker, an artist, or something else?
Usually I describe myself as a creative entrepreneur. I have multiple businesses, but if I had to choose one, I would say that I am an artist first and foremost. I love to draw ever since I was a little kid. I went to college for fine arts and graphic design, so definitely artist is probably my original identity.
What's your favorite medium to create art in?
Well, my shop is all based on my digital art, but originally I would say oil painting.
Oh, nice. Do you still get to do it?
I do, and I do some acrylic as well, and I do just some sketching as well.
Okay. So 2014, you opened your Etsy shop. How did you discover Etsy, first of all?
I believe I discovered Etsy in 2012 when I was planning my wedding, and I was shopping for, just wedding things like a purse, some decor.
Was your whole wedding planned on Etsy or just some parts?
Oh, just some little details.
Yeah. And so today, what do you make and sell?
So I sell outdoor adventure inspired prints and mugs, and I'm also working on a new line of designs that incorporate more of a personal development theme. I'm also certified as a transformational coach as of last year, and I love inspiring and helping people to reach their highest potential. So a lot of my new pieces that I'm getting ready to put out into the world are starting to marry that theme with the whole adventure component.
So coaching and adventure?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds, I can't even imagine.
Part of my big vision eventually is to do outdoor adventure retreats for business-minded women. Hopefully that's going to be coming next year in 2022.
Wow. Okay, good. Well, congratulations on that. How long did it take you to get your credentials to become a transformational coach?
So the program that I went through was 6 months long, and I actually started coaching before the program was over. So I've been coaching for about 14 or 15 months now.
What led you into coaching? Was it something that I don't want to say fell into, but you know how sometimes you just have a draw to help people and then you just start doing it, and then eventually you realize that what you're doing is coaching? Or was it more of an intentional step that you took to help people?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I don't know if I can say whether it was just totally organic or if it was, yes, it was intentional, but what led me to it certainly was more organic, I suppose. I faced some challenges in my life, and I was able to really overcome and work through those challenges and get to the other side and create a life for myself that was just so much more than I ever imagined. And I felt inspired to help other people do the same. So that's really the very, very simplistic version of my story of what led me to go into coaching.
Yeah. Now I know, and for everyone listening, I know it seems I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm going to tie it all back in, I promise. When it comes to coaching, there's a component that you bring, but then there's also a component that is reliant on the individual being coached. How do you gauge success if you're doing what you can, you're, say, leading the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink? How do you gauge success, and how do you ensure that the person that you're helping does experience, success or some level of success?
I think it's really about setting expectations from the beginning and making sure that the client is very clear on what their responsibilities are as a client and as they learn. I mean, like you said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. There was an analogy, I think maybe I heard someone say on your podcast recently, that took it another step further, and I really liked this. You can't make the the horse float on its back or something like that. I thought that was a great analogy because the person does need to take action, and they're responsible for taking their own actions. But I do take my coaching very seriously, and I do everything I can to inspire that person, whether they're building an Etsy shop or I do work with a lot of creative entrepreneurs. I also work with photographers, for example. So they have all the tools and they have all of the resources and the teachings. And I teach a lot around mindset and the power of our mind, our emotions, and our beliefs to affect the actions that we take, and thus affect the results that we get in our businesses and our lives. There's a lot of programs out there that teach you how to build an Etsy business, teach you how to build any kind of business for that matter. And my very strong belief and personal experience is that you can't have a wildly successful business unless you've mastered yourself first. So that's really what my coaching is rooted in, is mastering the inner landscape of the thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs, things that you may not even necessarily know you have going on. A lot of people have buried beliefs about money that are very limiting, that are keeping them from achieving their greatest potential. So that's the kind of thing we really dive into in my coaching.
Thank you. Yes, I that's actually why I was asking those questions, because we hear a lot, especially lately, and I don't know if it's just me hearing this now, maybe it's just coming to my own consciousness now, where people talk about how your mindset makes a big difference in the level of success that you experience, and not in a woo-woo way, but in a very practical way. If you believe that you can be successful at something, is going to just thinking that you can do something can affect the outcome.
Absolutely, yeah. And don't take this the wrong way, but that's a pretty cliche example, but it's totally true. Yeah. And, when you believe that you can have a 6-figure or even a 7-figure Etsy shop, you are going to have thoughts that support that belief. You're going to have feelings that those thoughts create. Like if I believe that I can have a 7-figure Etsy shop, for example, and I'm going to think like thoughts that support that, like this is possible. Other people have done this before. And then I'm going to have feelings such as, oh my gosh, like I am so excited. Like I can't wait to get to that point. I mean, this is like a very rudimentary example, but those feelings are going to inspire me to take actions that are going to help me move the needle towards that result that I want.
Yeah. Yes. Oh no, I totally agree with you. And not to trivialize what you just said, but before we started recording, I was telling Julia about driving up to the mountains to go skiing. And for anyone who's familiar with San Francisco, it's very hilly. Like it's crazy hilly. Like there's some hills you just cannot, you have to park and then walk up because they're so steep. And so when I lived in San Francisco, I developed a fear of driving up hills because I would roll backwards if the light turned red. I would be driving up a hill and I'm like, please don't turn red, please don't turn red, please don't turn red. And then, it would turn red and I would be dying inside because I'm like, great. Because when it turns green, you have that backward roll before you start going forward. And so here in Colorado, in my mind, I had the same, because it's, the mountains here are so beautiful. You have to go to the mountains. And I was telling Julia earlier that some friends came and we wanted to go to the mountains to go skiing. But I decided I wasn't going to tell any of them that I had this morbid fear of driving in the mountains. And so I just told myself, look, you drove on the San Francisco hills. They call them hills. They don't even call them mountains. So surely you can do this. And so if they had known how scared I was, no one would have gotten into the car with me. But I just told myself I could do it. You can drive that mountain. You're not going to die. You're not going to roll backwards. Even if you do, it's the Rockies, it's fine. And it was.
Well, and you also told me how much you enjoyed the scenery along the way.
Yes.
And being able to focus on that is going, it sounds kind of like you said, like a little bit woo-woo, but like being able to focus on like the beauty of it, it takes your focus away from the fear that you had. So I'm sure that helped you as well.
Yes. Yeah. So true. So I think, well, hopefully I hope that helped to solidify the point that you were making where,
it's a very practical, real example. I mean, probably a good chunk of your listeners have driven in the snow before and can relate. So I think that's a really easy to relate to example.
Yeah. So your Etsy shop, now you opened it in 2014, right?
Yes.
And from day one, did you have a very clear goal and focus of what you were going to sell, or did you refine that along the way?
There was definitely some refining. I still have some of the products that were in the original line. I mean, since I live here in Colorado and because my shop is adventure themed, I have a lot of skiing and mountain biking things that are still in my shop back from 2014 and they still sell today. But yeah, there has been an evolving, definitely. I mean, I did prints for the first, till about fall of 2018. So about 4 years, I guess. I was just doing prints, and then I added mugs, which were an instant hit. I mean, they just went crazy right from the beginning.
Wow. And now you're fully print on demand, right?
Yes, there was a period I started with print on demand, but I really was influenced early on by what other Etsy sellers were doing. I wasn't very good at staying in my own lane back in the beginning. And
oh, Julia, preach.
And there was a lot of talk on the forums about, even though it was print on demand at that point was allowed, there was just talk about, people didn't like it, or you should have that personal handwritten note in every order. And,
Huh.
like that's great for some people. And I did do that for a couple years. I guess it was about till the end of 2016, beginning of 2017 that I was doing my own printing. What I really despised was going to the post office. I live at 9,600 feet
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's snow sometimes 8 months of the year. And we don't have mail delivery or pickup here. So we have to go to the post office. So Christmas time,
Oh, man.
10 orders
Yes.
a day, 15 orders a day. It was not fun.
Oh, wow. Oh, I can only imagine. Wait, your USPS will not come and pick up at your door,
Nope.
but they
It's just
deliver.
not, it's really common in Colorado mountain towns. They don't pick up, and 90% of people don't have mail delivery either. You have to have a post office box.
So was this the time that you decided to go to a fully print on demand model?
Yes. So this was end of 2016, and I was at this point where I was kind of a little bit frustrated. Like I was doing, my shop was doing pretty well, but I definitely wasn't anywhere near replacing my income. I had actually quit my 9 to 5 job back in 2014, around the same time that I started my shop, but I had relied heavily on freelance graphic design work to supplement my Etsy shop income. And I was kind of just tired of the hustle. And so I actually, in that fall of 2016, I was still running my shop, but I started applying for 9 to 5 jobs. I had a bunch of interviews. I actually had some offers, but didn't end up taking any of them. And then that December, my mom called and she said that she had found a mass in her abdomen. And so she went down the road of the diagnosis process for ovarian cancer, over Christmas and into the new year. And I decided at that time that it was just it was not worth it to put myself through the stress of having to schlep all these packages to the post office in the snow every day. And what really mattered was being able to have the flexibility to go spend time with my mom as she was embarking on this journey of cancer. So I had been thinking about making that change. And then January came along. I think it was January 30th. I actually ended up being diagnosed with ovarian cancer as well. So my mom was diagnosed with stage 3C. And fortunately for me, I was diagnosed with stage 1A, which is the earliest they can even call cancer. So it was very, very early. I was very fortunate that I just needed to have surgery. I didn't need to have any additional treatments like she did. So I couldn't run my shop physically. I mean, I could sit by the laptop, but for a couple weeks I was recovering. I mean, I had to put it on vacation mode and, tell some of these customers, unfortunately I've had an emergency and I can't send your orders right now. So as I began to recover, I kind of just started to question my priorities. And I decided that, since my mom was on the East Coast, that being able to have the flexibility to spend time with her, to travel to see her, and my dad and my sister needed to be a really huge priority. I was very fortunate that my cancer was very early, but, it just, the thought haunted me for a while that it could have been me also, that I could have been at 36 years old, had a much more difficult prognosis. So, you never know when life is going to throw you a curveball through like that. So that's when I decided, I'm done with these things in my shop that aren't bringing me joy and that I really don't enjoy doing. And they're tying me to this physical location. And so that's when I decided to go not only full-time, fully POD, print on demand, but also to just take a full leap into my business. I mean, that's when I said, I am never going back to a 9 to 5 again. Like, I am making this business work because freedom is my number one priority.
Wow, Julia, first of all, I'm really sorry about your mom. And I'm sorry. And congratulations on what you were able to accomplish just in response to that. With print on demand, when you decided to do that, did you have any reservations? Because I know early on there were some in the Etsy community who just were not accepting of that model of for running an Etsy shop.
Certainly, you know, I had talked before about how I had kind of had some reservations when I started my shop, and that had motivated me to buy my own printer and start doing my printing myself. But you know what? Like, when you go through a trauma like that, where you have such a wildly strange thing happen, where, you know, not only your mother is diagnosed with a really scary disease, but you're also diagnosed with a really scary disease within, I mean, I don't know if I said this, it was with our official diagnoses were 27 days apart. Wow. When you go through something like that, you just don't care what other people think anymore. You know, you're able to really tune in to what is going to make you happy and make you feel alive and make your business work for you. Mm-hmm. You know, at that point, I let go of any reservations that I ever had before.
Yeah. I guess because it changed your perspective so much, you were able to reframe everything for yourself. Mm-hmm. Does that tie into how you're able to coach people as well? Because I know sometimes if we don't have a really strong reason, or what people now call a really strong why, we're not able to, I guess, follow through or stick with what we want to do. Is that something that you coach people past or through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I initially went through all of this and I came out on the other side and I started to create a life more beautiful and a business more successful than I ever had before, I was like, I want to give this to others. And, you know, I experienced this transformation and it was catalyzed by trauma, but I wanted to be able to give that to people without them having to go through something horrible.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that is a big part of my coaching. Something that I work with my clients on very early on in our time together is creating a vision, creating something, you know, tuning in, like you said, to a really strong why. So if you don't have a really strong why, like, we're going to create a really strong why, and that's going to help you pull forward and tune into this big vision, you know, and having that vision, tuning into the energy of that vision is going to inspire you to take action towards that vision. Okay. And that's been really powerful for my clients.
Okay. Now, for anyone who wants to check out what Julia does on the coaching side, her website is juliabaldwintaylor.com. I will link to that as well. And we're going to touch on some more things about that. But if you want to check that out or bookmark it while we're having this conversation, it's juliabaldwintaylor.com. Now, Julia, so print on demand, with that model, you're able to make it more hands-off. Another popular model is printables. Why did you choose POD over printables? Was there any reason in particular?
You know, at the time, the reason that I chose it, and this is, of course, years ago, I was looking at the printables that were available, and they were very, very low price, even though it's like going to be 90% profit margin or something like that. It still felt like, certainly it's very scalable, but to me, I was like, well, I'm going to have to sell like 1 million of these to
I
make
know.
the
I
money.
think that sometimes when I see the shops, I'm like, they're
Are
selling,
you
but
really
man,
selling
the
that for
volume
$1?
has to be. Sorry?
I said, you're really selling that for $1? Like,
Yeah.
and like maybe that was, my own limiting belief that it wasn't possible to sell a printable for much higher. But to me, I felt like I was delivering more value in a physical product, and there was a much larger profit. I am not opposed to printables by any means. And if that's exciting to you, then you should by all means explore it. And it may be something that I explore in the future. Just that was my line of thinking at the time.
Okay. Now, for anyone who isn't familiar with the print on demand model, so what happens is say you're an Etsy seller, you design, you create the whole design, everything is all on you. What you're doing is partnering with a third party to create the physical product itself, which some people do in-house. Like Julia said, she bought her own equipment. You can do your own printing in-house. Some people do screen printing on t-shirts. People can print on mugs, etc. I've had people on the podcast who have talked about doing it themselves as well. So part of when you outsource the printing aspect is finding a good partner. What was the process like for you figuring out who the best vendors were to partner with for to handle that part of the production process?
Well, there's several factors that I looked at. Certainly good customer service. So what I recommend anybody do if they're thinking about starting a print-on-demand business is to order samples from several different companies that sell the types of products that you want to offer, and just see what the experience is like. What is the quality of the product like? What is the customer service experience like? How long does it take to produce and ship the item? I mean, there are print-on-demand companies that take 5 to 7 business days to create a product, and then their shipping takes however long after that, a week. And to me, it was important to find production partners that had a much faster turnaround time. So that might not be important to everyone, but it was important to me. So that was something that I looked for. Also for me, I wanted to partner with somebody who allowed me to customize my branding. There are print-on-demand companies out there who just do what they call white label or blind shipping, but it's not branded. And it was important to me that my brand was echoed on the packaging. I have stickers put on everything. So it really felt like it was coming from me.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other thing I would really recommend, and this is probably more important than any other factor, is when you're looking at different possibilities for print production partners, is to really understand the numbers. Certainly when I was doing my own printing at home, I had a higher profit margin than using a print-on-demand company. And that was something that I understood making that decision, but it was a very educated decision. Like, I knew exactly how much money I could make if I priced my product at X. And it's really important that you understand that, and not just take into the factor in the cost of the product, but also any and all fees with Etsy, anything else that it takes to run your business. I mean, I have many monthly recurring expenses, like for example, Adobe Creative Cloud I pay for every month. All of that stuff needs to get factored in. So if you're just starting out and you've never sold anything before, then yeah, like you'll have, what am I trying to say here? Like
There'll be some figuring out you'll be
there'll
doing.
be some figuring out. Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, if you are paying for Adobe Creative Cloud, like in the beginning, you might be in the red, but like
Yeah.
you want to set yourself up so, you know, sooner than later, you can be making a profit because, I mean, unless you're just doing this as a hobby, um, which is fine, you want to be making a profit.
Yeah. Oh no, that's so important because and I think I've said this before. I think sometimes, quite often, sellers don't take into account all the peripheral fees and everything that goes into running your shop that contributes to whether or not you are actually making a profit or not. And this is one of the things was on my to-do list. I recently did a workshop for the Baltimore Public County Library System, talking about the fees and how to actually calculate whether or not you're making a profit. And it was very eye-opening for some people because when we had the Q&A, a lot of people said that what they hear most often is, oh, it's just 20 cents to list on Etsy. And I'm like, it's true, but that's the biggest deception about selling on Etsy, is that it's just 20 cents, because that's just on the front end. As you know, on the back end, there are fees upon fees for selling on Etsy, but not just on the platform, things that go into running your business, shipping supplies and all whatnot. And so it was good. And so, like you said, there's some figuring out that one has to do in the beginning, and you need to be comfortable with being in the red before you get to being in the black. But just be aware that it's a phase that you have to go through.
Right. Right. And, I try to really teach my coaching clients to take radical responsibility. And, that's an excellent example of taking radical responsibility, is saying, okay, like it might be a little bit scary and I might not totally understand the numbers here, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Versus being like, well, I don't get it. And just sort of playing the victim mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. What does a typical day look like for you, Julia? Like when you're not enjoying the beautiful scenery around?
So I'm going to answer this question a little bit differently, in that it's going to be more what my typical week looks like. So I set up my time in what I call A and B weeks. So I alternate what I'm focusing on each week. I strive to spend time making new designs every week. I usually try to budget about 10 hours or so per week making new designs. But other than that, I'm alternating between my coaching business and my creative business each week. So on A weeks, I'm coaching clients. I'm working on marketing for that business. And then on my B weeks, I'm focusing more on the creative business, the Etsy shop, and listing new products and marketing that side. I do have a virtual assistant that helps me out with customer service in the shop and doing some order processing. She's amazing. She's been with me almost 2 years now. In October, it'll be.
Wow.
Her name is Sydney. I'll give her a little shout out. She's amazing.
Okay. Now, is it hard for you to switch tracks? Or you're so used to now knowing, what your A weeks are going to look like and what your B weeks are going to look like? Is there any, what's the word, bleed over or bleed into, one from the other if things just don't get done?
So my weeks don't always go perfectly. I do try to build in some buffer time, so there's some spaciousness in my schedule. I don't jam pack my schedule. So yeah, sometimes A week bleeds into B week a little bit and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But at least I have this guiding structure for what I'm going to do. So I really like to plan my time. I'm not an over planner. I plan to a degree that feels good to me. So what that is really helpful for me in is alleviating decision fatigue of having to decide every day, what am I going to work on today? So I have kind of a general outline, I guess, if you will, to follow. So yeah, it doesn't always perfectly go how I plan it to,
Yeah.
but I'm just forgiving with that.
Yeah. Okay. How long, Julia, did you think it took for your shop to become profitable once you really, buckled down and said, I'm going to do this?
My expenses were pretty low. I mean, I mentioned I bought a printer, which probably took me a few months to pay off. And, I have, but by the time I went back to POD, to print on demand, I was definitely consistently profitable every month. I mean, my goal has always been to be profitable as soon as possible. I was never in this for it to just be a hobby or an experiment. Like, I knew that I wanted this to replace my 9-to-5 job income eventually. So I was always of the mindset that I was gonna be very aware of my numbers and I was gonna make it happen as soon as possible. So I would say the vast majority of the time, I mean, certainly there have been a couple months in the beginning that were in the red, but I would definitely say it's been a solid 5+ years now that I've been in the black.
Wow, wonderful. And congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Do you use a specific system for tracking your numbers just so that you are always able to see at a glance where you are?
It's really not very sophisticated. I mean, I do use QuickBooks to record all of my income and expenses, so I can look at my profit and loss every month. And I do have kind of a system that I use that's loosely based off of the book Profit First. I can't remember the author's name, but if you're looking to really understand and plan your business finances, it's a great book to look at. And like I said, I don't follow it to a T. It's kind of a loose following, but it really helped me understand my numbers so that I make sure that I'm in the black every single month and I'm not spending outside of my means. And then, as far as just, I have kind of just a Google sheet that has all of my monthly expenses in it.
Yeah.
And so I know what those are. And then I have a couple of production partners that I work with currently, and I know what the profit margin is for each category of products. So I know exactly where I land each month profit wise.
I like that. And I like that you're keeping track of all of it and you're able to say definitively, where you stand, because I think Etsy sellers in particular, we tend to be a bit more loosey-goosey, and that does affect profitability and eventually success if you just don't have your eye on the numbers and how you're doing and what's coming in and what's going out. And like you said, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. A Google spreadsheet works just as well. You just have to remember to update it if that's what you're going to do.
Right. And
Yes.
I honestly, I didn't use QuickBooks until maybe year 4. I was just using a spreadsheet up until then, but then, I was having my sales, I had so many orders per month that it was kind of getting out of control. So QuickBooks really helped me kind of take things to the next level and make things a little bit more sophisticated.
Yeah. It's always a nice time when you have to upgrade to something that's, easier to keep up with because you're doing well.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about your creative process. What inspires you when you're creating? What inspires the designs that you make?
So as we've talked about, I live in the mountains of Colorado. I love doing anything outdoors. I love mountain biking, skiing, paddleboarding. Actually, just went paddleboarding in the Colorado River yesterday with my
Oh, nice.
I love camping. I love backpacking, and a lot of my designs are inspired by my adventures out in the world. I also love to travel. And more recently, my designs have become more inspired by my path as a coach and my clients' journeys. And I'm gradually releasing some inspired pieces in that realm as well.
Nice. Do you ever find yourself in a creative rut? I would imagine just being up in the mountains where you are, that would be hard. But, I know sometimes creative blocks can come. Do you ever find yourself having a creative block or in a creative rut? And how do you get out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's human, right? I mean, I think it's normal. I mean, my go-tos are definitely to go outside, go for a hike, move my body, do some yoga. I really like to get the energy flowing as it really helps me tune back into that creativity. But I also, something that's kind of an alternative viewpoint on inspiration is that what a lot of people don't realize, we think we're sort of like at the whim of our emotions or at the whim of our inspiration. And a lot of work that I do with my clients is to create an emotion on demand. And because I work with creatives, inspiration is one of those emotions that I teach them to create, like, basically whenever they want, which is pretty amazing. You can certainly have, I think it's probably really normal to have like a couple weeks go by where you just don't have any ideas or you don't feel like working on the projects. And part of my work is really helping shift people's energy and helping them have the awareness that they can actually choose to feel inspired. And that's what I help them to do. And that's something that I do on myself when I'm not feeling so inspired. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's actually it's really practical. Actually, we talked before about how much our thoughts affect our feelings.
Yeah.
And is a feeling, and it's basically just, we do journaling exercises, we do thought work, so we can quickly shift into that space of inspiration.
Okay. No, I didn't think it sounded right when you said that, I was just about to say that actually sounds so intriguing. Inspiration on demand. It almost sounds contrary to itself, like
right.
On demand inspiration. But
and
yes.
It's practice, it's not something that you just say, like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Like, it's a process that you learn, but anybody can learn it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, one of the things with running a POD shop is, like you said, there are some things that are outside your control, Have you ever had to deal with any disputes or negative feedback since you've been using this model, and how have you been able to resolve them?
Honestly, I've been very fortunate. I have not had any huge disputes or anything. I mean, I have, at the time of this recording, I have almost 700 5-star reviews, and wow. I think I haven't counted, but I would say I have less than 5% of 3, 2, or 1. Did I say 5%?
Yeah.
I did not mean to say that. Oh my gosh. I meant like 5 total.
Oh, okay.
5 total. I know in Star
That's even
Seller,
better.
I'm at like 4.9 something
Yeah.
percent 5-star reviews. So I don't know where I came up with 5%. But yeah, I've just been fortunate to have really amazing customers and customers who understand, like, when things drastically shifted last year, especially with international orders, were taking
Oh, yeah.
months to ship, or not to ship, but to arrive at their destination. For the most part, people were amazing, and I'm really, really grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That was trying.
Hmm.
And yeah, I can only imagine with having, a portion of the process outside your control, that could be nerve-wracking too.
I do very much value customer service and communication with customers. Um, so certainly when someone has left me a less than favorable review,
Mm-hmm.
I've reached out and said, what could we have done differently for this
Mm-hmm.
to have been a better experience for you. And I actually did this a couple weeks ago with someone who left a 4-star review, and she was like, "Oh, oops, I didn't actually mean to leave you 4 stars. How do I
Oh,
change it?" And she did.
nice. That's nice. Yeah, I that happened to me once where I meant to press the 5th star,
Hmm.
and somehow it only did the 4th one, and I didn't see it until after I, had typed up my review, and I realized I'm so sure I pressed the 5th one, but hey, the things don't lie. But I mean, I did go back and add the 5th star. But yes, that has happened to me before where, and in your case, thankfully you reached out, because I know sometimes we, even with 4 stars, we're like, okay, well, I'm happy it's not 3 or 2 or 1. But the 4, in this case ended up being a 5 because it was intended to be a 5. So I'm thinking, man, maybe one should reach out and ask, for anything less than 5, how can I get better? Because maybe some of those 3s and 4s were unintentional.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that you shared your perspective as a buyer in that situation, that you can make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think it's worth, whether it's, I wouldn't necessarily say, can you change this? If you think
Yeah.
you made a mistake, don't assume. Just say,
Yeah.
hey, what could we have done to have made your experience better, or a
Yeah. Or
five
5
star
star.
experience? Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe the person will come back and say the same thing that my customer did. Who
Yeah.
knows? And for to speak to the handful, very small amount of 1, 2, 3-star reviews that I've had. I mean, in addition to reaching out, you also just, there are some people that are just not gonna be happy, like, and occasionally, you're a human being as a seller, and maybe you accidentally shipped out their order late, and they feel like it's warranted to leave you a lower star review. I mean, I think if you're on top of things 99.9% of the time, like, just let that one roll off your back.
Yeah.
It can be hard in the beginning, when you only
Yeah.
have a handful of reviews, but if you keep going and keep making customer service a priority, like, you're gonna get to a point where it doesn't even bother you,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so rare.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Julia, do you do anything in particular to promote your Etsy shop, like outside of Etsy, on social media or through your blog? Because I know you also have the alignedadventure.com website, or do you just let everything happen organically?
So that's a great question. I've used a variety of different strategies over the years. Um, I do want to point out that because I have this separate website and because I have a full e-commerce site there, that any promotion that I do is going to be driving traffic to the website and not the Etsy shop. I am not heavily reliant on social media, at least at this time. I did have another creative business in the past. I had a wedding stationery business as well, and I heavily used Pinterest, and Pinterest was extremely successful for me. This was a couple years back. I'm not currently, I do have a Pinterest page. I'm not currently utilizing it on a regular basis. But yeah, in the wedding space, it was a no-brainer, and it did very well. One strategy that I love to share that's, people always, when they think of promoting, social media is the first thing that pops into my brain with their brains. When I talk to friends who don't know anything about my business, they say, well, how do you grow your business? And this applies to both of my businesses, coaching and the creative. They ask me, how do you promote? And they say, do you do it on Instagram? And I said, no, it's actually not something that I focus a lot of my attention on. I am on Instagram. I kind of got off track here. The one strategy that I love to share is reaching out and asking blogs, websites, magazines, any type of publication, online or printed, to share. So something that's worked for me several Christmas seasons is, and this is actually great timing because this is the perfect time of year to start reaching out to folks about Christmas, but I've been featured in several holiday gift guides over the years. And typically what I do is if I can get a hold of the person's physical mailing address, I'll send them a sample and I'll send them a handwritten note, and I'll just ask them, would you consider including me in your gift guide, or whatever it is. There's gift guides for other times of year as well, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Halloween, etc. So that's been a strategy that's worked really, really well for me. And I actually was very fortunate to get a surprise feature on brides.com.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. It's been really amazing. I haven't looked recently, but tens and tens of thousands of sales of one of my mug designs that got featured in a 10-year anniversary gift guide.
Was it the couples mug?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah. Perfect for that. Yes.
Yeah. So that's one of my favorite strategies. But something I also would like to point out is, in my coaching business, I don't teach on, or let me rephrase this. I don't tell a client, you need to do this specific strategy. What is so much more powerful that people don't realize is you being aligned with whatever strategy you're doing. That strategy excites you and it feels good. And you just can't wait to do it. If Instagram feels like a drag and you don't want to do it, don't do it, because you're not going to get results when you're putting in this energy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Yes. So I like that you're thinking outside of the online box, because I think, especially in more recent years, I think we've, as e-commerce sellers and businesses, have become very insular in the online world, thinking, because that's where our businesses are housed, everything has to take place there, to the exclusion of, where real life is happening, which is the outside world, the physical world. Mm-hmm. And just this strategy that you said, just simply, sending samples and asking for, to be included in gift guides, I think now is so, probably maybe way back when the online space was not as big as popular as it is now. Sending samples was probably a congested, medium for trying to, put your product in front of people. But now that everyone has kind of, is looking online, I think, when something pops up in somebody's mailbox, it's just such a pleasant surprise. And, it stands out because it's there. It's right in front of them now. And like I don't know if you said this, but I found it's actually not as hard as most people think to figure out people's mailing addresses and send samples to them. I know it sounds kind of stalkerish, but for the right reasons, it can be done.
If I can share a specific story,
yeah,
that I think would inspire your listeners, is a couple seasons ago, I was doing the same thing, preparing for the holidays, and I sent out prints to several ski related publications, and I can't remember off the top of my head what publication it was. I was able to go and look at like their about section and see the person who was writing a lot of these articles and read her bio, and she said, my favorite ski area is Steamboat Springs. So I sent her a Steamboat print, and it made her day. Like, she wrote and she's like, gosh, how did you know that my favorite ski area was Steamboat? I was like, well, I read your bio. But just, having that like personalized connection really made a difference.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And it's funny because, yes, people will forget that they've put stuff out there. And then you come off looking golden, like, oh my goodness, she knows me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's stalkerish if, you have it on your professional bio that you this, that, or the other.
Yes, yeah. Have there been any times in the course of running your businesses, I should say, that you've considered just throwing in the towel and moving on to something else?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on that before. Just when I'd been in my shop had my shop for about two years or so, and I was I was doing pretty well, but it had been 2 years, and I hadn't replaced my income from my 9-to-5 job, and I was having these thoughts like, I should be further along by now. And I was just tired of trying to figure it out. So yeah, absolutely. But then, like we talked about before, life threw me one heck of a curveball, and my priorities changed. And, that I never looked back. I said, I'm going to make this work no matter what. And I did.
Yeah. I know this, and we haven't brought it up yet in our conversation, but I would like you to maybe just touch on how you did this, because Aligned Adventure is not your first successful business that has an Etsy component to it. You've had one before that you grew to be its own successful brand, and you were able to sell that off.
Yes. So like I mentioned.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, please go on.
Like I mentioned, I had a wedding stationery brand, and Etsy was a small component of that brand. I created that brand on my own website, and I, like I said, used Pinterest, and also really learned SEO. I was using a tool at the time called Longtail Pro. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about Longtail keywords, especially tools like Marmalade, for example, for their Etsy shops. And I grew it to a point where it was very profitable. I was very proud of it. Um, but after all of these things happened in my life, I was still enjoying running that business. And, it was also print on demand based, different print production partners than I use now for Aligned Adventure. Um, I, I felt like something bigger and something more meaningful
Yeah.
called to me. The business had been successful, and I was as I was considering like what my path was going to be next. um, I thought about shutting it down. So I see where you're getting at with that question. I think a moment ago about throwing in the towel, like this just,
Yeah.
I guess when you say throwing in the towel, I think of giving up. And
Mhm.
to me, it wasn't really giving up. It was just like closing that chapter. But I had a business coach who encouraged me to, as I was exploring this new thing that ultimately turned into this coaching business. At the time, I didn't know it was going to be that. As I was exploring this, they recommended that I read a book called Traction, which is a pretty famous book in the business world. And I sat down at a coffee shop for 2 days, and I only did the first chapter, which is all about creating your big, big vision, which we talked a little bit about before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was tuning into like this bigger thing that had nothing to do with wedding stationery. But as I was doing this work and doing these exercises, the idea to sell it just hit me like a lightning bolt.
Mm.
I was just sitting there at this coffee shop. I don't know if I like exclaimed anything out loud. I feel like that's the memory that I have. People around me thought I was crazy, but I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the best idea ever. And I had no idea how to do it. I was just like, this is so much better than just like shutting the doors. Because not only can I offer value to somebody else who wants to take this thing that I've built and nurture it and grow it and automatically have an income
Yeah.
right off the bat, I can also potentially make some money too. So I did a little bit of research, and I was able to find an online business broker who helped me list it and find a buyer and conduct the transaction legally, and also transfer all the assets. You don't think necessarily, I didn't really have physical inventory because this was also a print on demand based business, but there was a lot of digital assets that I had, including the website. I mean, that was probably the website, the email address, everything like it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of little things that you don't think of, and they were wonderful in helping me get everything transferred over, seamlessly and beautifully to the new owner.
Nice. Do you ever miss that?
Do I miss the business?
The business, yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, to be really transparent, mostly no, but
Okay.
I will say, there was kind of a gap of time where the transaction was complete, everything was handed over, I had no more responsibility to that business, and there was time elapsed before I really started getting my feet wet in coaching. And there was sort of like, it kind of caught me off guard. There was like a little bit of like loss of purpose or something, because I was helping these brides and these couples with their weddings, and getting such amazing feedback from them, and them just gushing over how much they loved the invitations and the save the dates and everything else. That I guess there was a little part of me that missed that human connection, even though it was all online. So yeah, I mean, there was a little bit a gap of time before I started stepping into the new, bigger thing.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
I did miss it a little bit.
I have to say, Julia, when you paused, I was like, wait, what? Because I was expecting an immediate no. So, yeah, but that makes
overall,
sense.
the answer is no.
Yeah, yeah, but it makes sense that it's a transitional no.
Mm-hmm,
If
mm-hmm.
if you understand what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
there was a transition before it got to a solid no.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Because
it's definitely a solid no right off the bat, because the transaction actually happened when my husband and I were, um, he had a sabbatical from his work, and it happened when we were in South America in Patagonia, and then we flew to New Zealand. So we were living the adventure life to the fullest extent possible
yeah,
at the very beginning of 2020 before the pandemic.
yeah,
So I was very happy to let it go then. But then once we got back and the pandemic really started to set in and we realized like, well, we're going to be here. We're going to be in lockdown for a bit here. Then it started to hit me a little bit.
yeah. What is a lesson? Well, before we do that, what are some, and you don't have to say everything, maybe just a couple of things that looking back on your experience of running a business on Etsy, what are some things that you can say you did that set you up to be successful or to find success on and off the platform, because you're not confined to Etsy anymore?
Mm-hmm. I think a couple things. I mean, like we've already talked about a fair bit, is just really understanding your numbers, understanding that's a really great way to set yourself up for success in the beginning. I think the commitment, certainly I was committed in the beginning, but having an even higher level of commitment in 2017 when everything shifted for me personally, having a mindset that I was gonna make it work no matter what,
Yeah.
challenges came along, I guess so those are the kind of the two big things, is that commitment and just having a real understanding of your business and what it takes from the beginning to, and sometimes that does take trial and error, but being really transparent and not making excuses for not understanding something when it's going to end up being a roadblock for you.
I like that. You also mentioned that you had a coach, or you were taking business coaching. Do you think that also helped to contribute to your success? And do you think it's something that is beneficial or can be beneficial for most other sellers too?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I kind of said this before, but there's a ton of courses out there on how to build an Etsy shop, how to grow an Etsy shop. But I think coaching provides, not I think, I know coaching provides accountability. It provides a sounding board. It allows you to have this space where you can explore in a safe way, a way that's really respected. But also, like, a coach can call you out on your BS, to be honest. I mean, a coach can really help you become more aware of stuff that is holding you back from making your Etsy shop and life dreams come true.
Yeah.
So I think it's really nice to have somebody, like an objective person who is on your side, who wants all the best things for you and is cheering you on, but somebody who is in your court that can help you shed the stuff that isn't serving you.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to do that stuff on your own. It's really hard for you to even see, you've got a limiting belief that's keeping you from growing. I mean, my perfect example that I didn't see was that me trying to print and ship all my own work and go to the post office in the snow every day was a requirement, that I had to do this because the Etsy community, the majority of them at the time, or at least my belief was that they were telling me I had to do it. It was just a belief, but it was holding me back. And that's what I think a coach can do that is so valuable. I mean, that's just one example, but there's a million examples of things you can have that are holding you back from, exponentially growing your Etsy shop.
Do you think that it's possible to reach, how do I want to phrase this? How do I want to ask my question? Is it possible to reach an end with coaching, like to be done? Or do you think that is just a constant?
Well, I think as humans, I think that we're meant to be growing.
Yeah.
I think that's really a part of our experience. And some people might even say, like, part of why we're here on this earth is to grow. And you can do that on your own. You can do that by reading a book. You can do that by journaling. You can do that by having a coach. I think having a person who can reflect back you to you is really priceless. So no, I don't think that there's really a time when you're done growing. Yeah. I do think there's, a lot of my clients will work together for 3 months, and then they'll go off and work on their business for a couple months, and then they'll say, okay, I'm like ready for the next thing.
Yeah.
And I'm also like wanting you to hold me accountable. Like, I want you to help me hold that big vision for myself. And remember my why that we established together. So I do have clients who, they finish our time together, and they take a break and they come back, or they don't, and that's totally fine. Like, everybody's on their own journey. They might go and find another coach,
Yeah.
And I respect
that. I like how you said, it's nice to have somebody that reflects you to you, because I think one of the things we as people struggle with is either we're, just overly critical of ourselves, or we're not fully honest with ourselves.
Right.
And so having that objective outside person who has no reason to not tell you the truth, can be transformational. Oh, transformational coaching.
Right. Yeah. They left a different perspective. And actually, one of my coaches that I've worked with in the past, she says that, like, right now, our brain is only capable of taking in 10% of our actual reality. Like, I don't know what the science is behind this. I'm pretty sure it has been studied by neuroscientists, and I'll try to dig into the source behind this. But whether it's 10%, it's 50%, whatever, like, I think most of us have had some kind of experience where we didn't realize there was something in our reality, whether it was a possibility or like an avenue to grow our business that we hadn't ever thought of before. Like in my example of selling my wedding stationery business, like that wasn't in the realm of what I was imagining was possible for me. And then when I tuned into that big vision and started aligning with that, then the awareness there wasn't somebody who told me I could do it, although a coach could have certainly told me.
Right.
I was opened up to something I never knew or never even thought of before. So I think a coach can really accelerate. And there was a coach in that situation. I mean, a coach had assigned me the task of reading the book Traction, and working on my vision. But yeah, they can really help you speed up that process of discovering what else is out there for you.
Yeah. Yes, I like that. Ah, Julia, there's so much to talk about. Okay. And I'm trying to decide what good questions just to, grab some more nuggets from you before we wrap up our conversation. What's something you're doing now that's working really well for you?
So I'm just really excited to be recommitted to my shop again. I mean, not that I was ever not committed to it, but I've been very focused for the last 18 months or so on my coaching business, getting the certification and then creating this business, growing a new business from scratch. And so I've been really focused on that. I didn't make a lot of new designs, and I have missed that more creative side of myself. I mean, there is a creative element absolutely to coaching, and that is satisfying, but that more artistic side I've missed definitely. So I'm just really excited right now about the new rhythm that I'm stepping into. And I'm just excited to be growing both in what feels like a very synchronistic, I don't know if that's quite the right word, but just a way where they complement each other. And it's been a journey getting to this point, but I feel like it's finally starting to work, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. I'm excited for you too, because I can feel that just from talking to you, having, like you said, wrapped up with the coaching, you're set there, and then now you're able to come back, not like you left, but breathe new life into your Etsy shop. And that's exciting.
New inspiration.
Yeah. Now, along the way in our conversation, you've mentioned a number of tools and resources, and I've written them all down, and I'm going to find links to them. So some were books and some were like tools, like the Longtail Pro. I don't know if it's still on the market, but if it is, oh, it is? Okay. So I'll find a link and put it there so folks can go and check them out or read those books. I know I want to pick up a couple of those books too, for myself. Are there any other tools or resources that you find or have found particularly helpful that maybe you haven't yet mentioned?
Gosh, I feel like I've listed kind of the highlights. I mean, something that I feel like has helped me that I just recommend in general, it's not a specific tool or a specific book, is just being a voracious reader. I read not just business books or books about creativity, but I read a lot of books about personal development. Back in the day, I think they were called self-help books. I don't think they're really called that anymore.
Yeah, I think the lingo has changed. Yes.
Just anything that helps you grow as a person is going to help you grow your business.
Okay. Yes, I like that. Okay. Well, thankfully, I was making notes as you were mentioning the books that you did find helpful. So I will link to those, to those in the show notes for this episode. And do you happen to have an Etsy shop shout out? And if you don't, that's okay, because I know you do. Oh, great. Who is it?
I do, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So one is the Naptime Artist. So it's my friend Rachel. We actually met online in, I forget exactly what group. It might have been one of the Rising Tide groups or Jenna Kutcher's group or something like that. But She actually lives like 30 minutes down the road from my sister, who lives on the other side of the country. And so we just started chatting online. We've met a few times in person, but her shop is really inspiring to me. She's a watercolor artist. She's very talented. She's also been extremely successful. And what's really, I think, the most inspiring to me is that the reason that her shop is called the Naptime Artist is she started her shop painting during her son's naps, and that was the only time that she had to work. And she's built this business basically just during nap time and at bedtime after the kids go to bed. She also has a daughter now. And she's so disciplined, and she does so much with the short amount of time she has. I mean, I don't have kids, and I just think it's incredible, these moms and dads who have successful businesses who are making it work. So she's a big inspiration to me. And then the second one is also a good friend of mine. Her shop is called Mod Ceramics. Her name is Liz Heller. So Mod Ceramics is spelled MODCRMX.
Oh, thank you.
And she does these really cool modern vases and cups. And she's actually in Colorado as well. She's in Aspen. And she does these 3D printing molds. I'm probably totally butchering how to explain this, but she makes these molds from a 3D printer, and then she pours porcelain into these molds, and it's so unique and so special. And so, yeah, you should definitely go check out both of those shops.
Oh, for sure. And as you were talking, I was pulling each one up. One, just to make sure I found them so I can link to them, and two, to check them out. And yes, absolutely. Rachel's artwork is beautiful. I think just, yeah, squeezing all that in during nap time, amazing.
And her kids don't nap anymore. I think they're 5 and 8 now.
Oh, okay.
So they're in school.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Well, still that. And then Liz's store, Mod Ceramics, beautiful artwork. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm going to link to it so folks can check out both these Etsy shops and let them know that Julia sent you. Julia, what's the best way folks can connect with you? And do you have any programs going on, any workshops that people can look up or, join just to get a feel for what it's like to work with you?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. So you already mentioned, or we already talked about my coaching website, which is juliabaldwintaylor.com. Baldwin, Baldwin, Taylor, Taylor. And you can check out my coaching over there. I've got some cool free resources there. And then my website is alignedadventure.com. You can find me on Instagram at Aligned Adventure, but like I said, it's actually aligned_adventure. I don't actually use it a lot. It may be something that I play with later on, but I do check my DMs there. You can send me an email on either website. And yeah, I actually, thanks so much for asking if I had anything coming up, because I do. I have a workshop that I've designed just for Etsy sellers that is coming up on Monday, September 27th, and it's called How to Grow Your Etsy Shop with the Power of Your Mind. Ooh. So in this workshop, we're going to take a deeper dive into some of the things that we've talked about today, specifically how to start noticing your thoughts that aren't serving you, as well as uncovering some of these limiting beliefs that you may not even realize you have that are holding you back from creating the success that you want. We're going to do a really practical, fun exercise, so it's really easy to understand and it's very applicable to your life and business, and really demonstrate to you exactly how your inner world is affecting your results, including sales in your Etsy shop. And you'll also have a chance. It's going to be like pretty casual, interactive workshop, and you'll have a chance to get coached by me, ask whatever questions you want about growing your Etsy business to 6 figures and beyond. The price is $20, but for your listeners, Ijama, I'm offering a off coupon, so it's just $10, and the coupon code is CONVO, CONVO.
Thank you so much, Julia.
You are welcome.
For 50% off. Sorry, I'm writing this down so I can put it in the show notes. And you will have a registration page, right? For people to register?
Yes. Need to see the page, don't I? It's juliabaldwintaylor.com/Etsy workshop. All one word. Etsy workshop. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys can join me. I know you're going to get a ton out of it, and I would really be excited if some of your listeners decided to join me.
I hope so too, and I will have a link in the show notes for this episode. This is episode 333, so you can go directly and sign up. But again, it's going to be at juliabaldwintaylor.com/Etsy workshop.
Yes.
If someone just wants to punch that into their phone right now. And don't forget, if you want to register and get 50% off, use the code CONVO, CONVO. Is it case sensitive?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So use the code CONVO, CONVO, to get 50% off your registration fee. Julia, thank you so much for giving that discount. I do appreciate that. And I hope folks will sign up for this and just hear from someone who's done it, not just once, but twice. Mm-hmm. I think the angle you're coming from is different from the angle that a lot of the courses, as we talked about a couple of times at least in our conversation, your angle is different. Mm-hmm. How you approach finding success on Etsy by just, getting rid of the things that are stumbling us that we probably don't even know, because the technical parts, how to, start a shop and build it and all that is out there. And, there's good information. But, with all that, why are some people still not, finding success? And so I think, looking at it from a different angle, like you are, can be helpful, can be beneficial. So I'm looking forward to that. And again, that will be on Monday, September 27th, which actually, if you're listening to this on the day it goes live, is next week, Monday.
I think 12 days.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry. Yes. 12 days.
Yeah. So just under 2 weeks away.
So just under 2 weeks. So yeah. So there is time to sign up for it. And if you listen to it after, Julia, will you make it available for folks after the event, or do you plan to just do it again live at some future date?
That is a great question. I will definitely do one of those two. I will either make it available recorded, or I will do another one. I haven't decided yet, but yes, there will be another opportunity at some point if folks are listening to this after the date. Because I know I sometimes listen to podcasts after some cool offers.
I know. And I'm like, man, why?
Yeah, but I will definitely, whatever I decide, if it's a recording or if we do another date in the future, I will have it available at that same URL, juliabaldwintaylor.com/Etsy workshop. Okay. So regardless of when they're listening, they can go to that link and find out more.
Wonderful. Julia, thank you so much. Thank you for just the energy and the spirit that you bring to your business, and for having this conversation with me. You're helping me to think about things in a different way, and I'm kind of excited to go back and rethink some things just reframe the way I think about certain things. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure to join you today.
And I thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. I will be back with another episode next week. Oh, if you want to connect with me, definitely go to convome.com. You can fill out the contact form. That's probably the best way. And if you'd like to be my guest on the podcast, there's the Be My Guest page right there as well. And I will be back again next week. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.